So your nonprofit teaches people things. Well, I guess that makes your nonprofit an educational charity? Well, that just might be true, and today we're looking at the 501c3 purpose category of education. So come back after the intro and we'll get going. Hi, this is Greg McRae, founder and CEO of Foundation Group, and welcome back to our 501c3 University channel, where we strive to make nonprofit compliance understandable. You know the drill by now. If you enjoy this video, we would love it if you would hit that like button, and even better, go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss new videos when we post them. Today, we're continuing our series on the nonprofit purpose categories, specifically those that qualify for 501c3 status. Those categories being religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, amateur sports promotion, prevention of cruelty to animals and children, and a roll-up category of generally charitable. In our last video, we looked at the religious category, and today we're going to take a closer look at education. 501c3 purpose category of education is one of the broadest there is. And when you say that a charitable organization is educational in nature, that statement captures a really broad swath of possibilities. At a base level, the IRS considers a nonprofit to be educational if either of these activities describe the nonprofit's mission. 1, the instruction or training of individuals for the purpose of improving or developing their capabilities, or 2, the instruction of the public on subjects useful to individuals and beneficial to the community. Now that covers a lot of ground, doesn't it? It also leaves a lot of ambiguity, so let's dive a little deeper. First, I want to go over the 3 types of charities that most represent the spectrum of educational nonprofits, and then I want to spend a few minutes at the end talking about what is not considered educational for 501c3 purposes. The first and I think most obvious type of educational nonprofit is a school. Now this can encompass a preschool, a K-12 private school, a college or university, or even a trade school. Lots of possibilities here. The thing they all have in common, though, is a student body, a teaching faculty, a curriculum, and usually a physical location. Now, you may remember that we ran into this physical location issue when we talked about churches in our discussion of religious charities. Well, we're running into it again here. It's not that a school cannot have some virtual learning, but the IRS still expects some brick and mortar. They phrase it this way: a regularly enrolled student body at a place where the educational activities are regularly carried on. So we all know what a school is without going into too much detail. The question is, are all schools then 501c3 charitable nonprofits? Well, not necessarily. Here's 2 examples of schools that are not 501c3. Number 1, public schools and public colleges or universities. Public schools are a unit of government, so they don't apply for 501c3 status. Interesting thing about them, though, is that they are often qualifying to receive tax-deductible contributions from the public as if they were 501c3. Bet you didn't know that. The other type of non-501c3 school is the for-profit variety. These are newer to the scene overall, but you see this with colleges like University of Phoenix, DeVry, or Kaplan University. These institutions provide collegiate education, and many are even accredited, but they're run as businesses. What are some other peculiarities about schools? Well, for one, when a new school applies to the IRS for 501c3 recognition, they not only have to answer all the questions any applicant organization would have to, they also have to disclose the racial makeup of the faculty and student body, as well as take out a newspaper ad of a minimum column width to disclose their anti-discrimination policy. Once a school is approved, they must continue to disclose these numbers on their Form 990 annually, as well as publish their non-discrimination policy each year. This all has its roots in the 1960s during desegregation, and interestingly, these requirements still stand today. Our next type of educational charity is what I would call generally charitable. Remember what I said earlier about instruction of the public on subjects useful to individuals and beneficial to the community? Well, this is that, and it does cover a wide range of possibilities. Here are some examples that come straight from the IRS description list in Publication 557. An organization whose activities consist of conducting public discussion groups, forums, panels, lectures, and other similar programs. An organization that presents a course of instruction by correspondence or through the use of television or radio. I think these days the internet would be the most likely medium for this type. A museum, zoo, planetarium, symphony orchestra, or similar organization. Yep, nonprofits that promote the arts qualify as educational charities. A nonprofit children's daycare center. Now with this one, there can be for-profit examples as well, so you can't assume all daycares are nonprofit, Many are not. Here's one more that's interesting, and that's children's sports organizations. If a sports group is exclusively geared toward kids under 18 years old, it will probably qualify as an educational 501c3. We're talking about Little League Baseball, youth football, or even your local travel soccer club. Again, some may be set up as commercial businesses, so you can't always be certain. Our third type of educational nonprofit is what I call topical education. By this, I mean a charity whose purpose is to educate the public about one or more topics in a non-scholastic environment. Now, this could be virtual over the internet. It could also be done through radio or TV. It could be conducted through a lecture circuit, or all of the above. Topical education also includes issue advocacy. Now, this is where a nonprofit is very focused on a particular subject, and its efforts are concentrated on building public awareness of that subject and even encouraging action around it. Interestingly, there is absolutely no requirement that issue advocacy be unbiased or presented without a slant. If we're honest, no one is without bias, and it's almost impossible to present any subject without a bent to it. The IRS doesn't prohibit these groups from encouraging their audience members to reach a predetermined viewpoint. Here's specifically what the IRS says about advocacy. Advocacy of a particular position or viewpoint may be educational if there is a sufficiently full and fair exposition of pertinent facts to permit an individual or the public to form an independent opinion or conclusion. The mere presentation of unsupported opinion isn't educational. So in other words, you can't just make stuff up, but there is no explicit notion of lack of bias. Advocacy wouldn't be advocacy without something to advocate for, right? So that last bit leads me into a brief discussion about what is not considered educational. Here's how the IRS describes advocacy that isn't educational, and I think you'll see a theme developing. Number one, the presentation of viewpoints unsupported by facts. The facts that support the viewpoint are distorted or false. Presentations that make the use of inflammatory and disparaging terms and express conclusions more on the basis of emotion rather than objective evaluations. And finally, the approach used isn't aimed at developing an understanding on the part of the audience because it doesn't consider their background or training. In other words, if your educational purpose consists of blame throwing and manipulating your audience, you're welcome to do it, but you're not going to do it as a 501c3. Another quick but very important point to make here, advocacy doesn't include campaigns for public office. That's a no-go for any 501c3, and advocacy that involves lobbying directly or even indirectly about legislation and or public policy beyond a small percentage of the activities will not qualify as 501c3. Organizations that do that often choose to be a 501c4 instead, but that's a topic for another day. Well, I hope this has helped you understand the educational 501c3 topic a little better. There's certainly more to it than most would presume. If you've got comments, leave them below. If you've got questions, we'll try to answer those as well. Thanks for watching. Now go serve your community. Hey, do me a favor and don't navigate away just yet. We would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button below, as it really helps get our content recommended to more people. Subscribe if you haven't already, as we have great content coming your way on a regular basis. Finally, you can click the little bell icon to be notified of new content when we post it. To learn more about Foundation Group, you can visit us on the web at www.501c3.org. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.